So I will reach out to him in the morning. I don't know why it didn't go out, but
That's a good guess.
All set? I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, September 16th at 7 p.m., located in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is President's Report. Just a couple of things to report tonight. Earlier today, we had a flag ceremony at about 5 o'clock out in the around the flagpoles at Village Hall. And the purpose of that ceremony was we were requested by the unit of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Keller and his family if we could obtain a flag that would fly over the village of Germantown. The Lieutenant Colonel, who is retiring, is a graduate of Germantown. He graduated from Germantown High School in 2001. At that time, he was a four-year letter winner, mostly in varsity swimming from 1997 to 2001. And in talking to his family, he also set several state records while he was on that team. But he was retiring, and he went to college in Florida, and that's where he spent most of his career in the military. And now after 20 years, he's retiring. The purpose of the flag, we had actually received it from State Senator Dan Knodel, and he took the flag and flew it over Madison, over the state capitol. We took it here and flew it over our flagpole here over Germantown Village Hall. And then that same flag will be taken to Washington, D.C. and flown over the United States Capitol. So it'll be one of the flags that are flown over three areas, very significant and a nice remembrance of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Keller's hometown, home state, but also in his service to our country. So we appreciate that and his long service, and also giving us the opportunity to do this for him and his family today. So it was a great honor and a nice ceremony. And I'd like to thank our village clerk, Donna, for organizing it and setting it up. He did an excellent job getting everybody together. So thank you. Only other announcement I have is coming up on September 28th and 29th is Oktoberfest. And that will be at Dinesville Park. And it'll have different activities that are listed throughout on their agendas. Mostly, most important, one of the more popular ones is on Sunday when they have the Dachshund Dash. And people bring their Dachshund dogs from all over and race them. It's quite a lot of fun. A lot of families come. It's great fun for the family. So if you have time on the 28th or 29th, please go out to Dinesville Park and participate in Oktoberfest. That's all the announcements I have under President's Report. So we can then go to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 1st.
All right, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on October 21st, 5:30 p.m.
All right, thank you. Trustee Hudson.
Public Safety will meet in this room October 7th at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring forward in regards to forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
President Walter, I believe that the Dachshund Dash is on Saturday.
That was on Sunday.
No, the car show is on Sunday.
Okay, well then I'm stand corrected. It's on Saturday. Thank you.
But do come to the car show.
Yeah, that's also nice. All right, thank you for that correction.
Sure.
Any other announcements? All right, then we can go to next item on the agenda, which is citizen input. Anyone that is joining us today in our audience that would like to participate in citizen input, you're welcome to do so. Please fill out a yellow slip and give it to the village clerk so they get your name and your address correct for the record. And if there is anyone joining us via WebEx, please make your intentions known so that the moderator can bring you forward at the time that you'd like to come forward for citizen input. Just a moment. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Here's my slip for Lynn Shower
Thank you.
Bednarz on 10121 Pawnee Court. I would like an extra 2 minutes. I have something very important to say and I want to be heard. It won't take that long. First of all, real quickly on the soliciting, I had 3 people come to our door and pound on my garage door, come inside my garage and demand I answer the door. This has got to stop. This is my experience, okay? And I did some things with it. You're going to be talking about Sterling Pharma tonight, and I took the time. I check things out, okay? And I checked this company out. And I don't think you owe the Economic Board of Washington County to do anything to spend millions of dollars of our money without asking us. You can post your public notices. The people don't read half of them. I started ads in the Express to let people know, and I'm not done yet. We're going to form a committee. And Sterling Pharma has a lot of scientists and chemists. Here's what is said, okay? And this should be part of, you're taking part with a company who has this posted. Inferior shipping issues related to management in the shipping department. These are from scientists and chemists that work there. One employee said, terrible managers, if 0 were an option, I'd use it as far as grading the company. Scientists' opinion is a question. He questions, he says the management is questionable. There's an attitude there that is highly indecisive. Most issues are last-minute decisions. Disorganized company potential is squandered on unwillingness to spend money on what might actually help. Toxic work environment with managers and site leaders. Training is not what it should be, and a lot of employees are stressed. Very little cohesive training and coordinating cross-functional projects. I don't talk like this. This is coming from people who work there. They need to align more with the market conditions. You know what? Our village board needs to do the same thing with your budget. Every time I come here, I'm looking at stuff, millions of dollars on a board. We can't afford this anymore. And I'm doing what I can as a citizen to see if I can wake up some people in this community. And if Sterling Pharma, with the money that I looked up their history, and they have more money than our village has. We got 21,000 people. I don't want to carry the burden for a company like that. If they don't like it, maybe, and you know what, if this election doesn't go as planned and we get a Democrat in, their taxes of companies might be very high, and maybe they'll move out if that happens. Then we talk about kids. There's no written commitment from this company for anything, and you should say no till there's a written commitment what they're going to do if you do. But I think you should say no. And I'm not stupid. I don't know everything, but I know people who do, and they're against this plan completely, and they aren't even citizens here. You know, I have a neighbor, that a friend of mine, she owns a big real estate company, and she said, you know what she heard? And I'm not criticizing anybody on the board, but she said, sounds like we hear your board has a real problem with spending money. And that's what's out there. And the net, you're not supposed to put the taxpayers in a bind. There should be held a written letter for taxpayer meetings. Governments don't earn money. They use tax money to do things with, okay? That's our money. And the board is voted for to be entrusted as stewards of our money, and your ability to protect us is questionable. And I'm hearing this more and more. People don't want to do what you're doing. You should be having a public meeting with Sterling Pharma. You should be sending people a letter that are going to pay for this and get more people involved before you make any vote. And you know what? You probably won't even do it. I stood here for weeks and spoke about how you're spending money, and it doesn't even register with anybody. And I don't understand that kind of thinking. And you're acting like irresponsible Democrats. And you know what? I think it's time for new leadership. I really do. And there's a mismatch between spending and revenues, and this is characteristic of this board and in our village. And your decisions will leave scars that, if going unchecked, are going to destroy our fiscal health, and they will. This economy is ready to break. I've looked at reports from the top economists in the country and in the world, from Chase and JP Morgan, and they say the same thing. And your policies are affecting the vitality of our village and our well-being of our taxpayers. And the only way that this is going to get corrected is to stop spending. Stop. And only way to stop this is they say that if this doesn't stop with this spending, we're $37 trillion in debt in this country. And it's nuts. And I don't know why you're not looking at this. I don't understand. It's going to affect every person in the country if something happens, and we're on a real roll for that. And the monetary fund warns it's putting the entire economy at risk, okay? And you're borrowing money for everything. And you know what? Just even, and I'm not being sarcastic, but this young police person that works that wants $45,000. You know what? A policeman gives his life. His starting pay is probably $45,000. I don't see why somebody, I don't care. I worked hard all my life. I was at work at 7 in the morning. I worked till 9 at night. I worked 6 days a week, okay? And I didn't ask for any money. I worked for it. I had to go out and get it, all right? And so all I'm saying is I'm asking this board because I'm giving you a promise. I'm forming a committee that we're going to get taxpayers together. And if you don't start getting us involved in how you're spending our money, we need new people on the board because nobody's listening. Nobody is listening. Very few are. There's a few of you that are. But I'm trying to warn you what's happening here. This budget is out of hand. So I do appreciate your listening to me. I'm very concerned and I'm very fearful of what's happening. And that's why I'm so earnest about what's going on here. It really bothers me. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Careful of the short step, ma'am. Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Thanks. Okay. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Good evening. I just have a few comments and a couple of questions. Glad to see that the school district member is going to be added to the Plan Commission tonight. My only question, and maybe this is just a technical thing in the Muni Code, is the village board representative on the school district committee is a voting member there, but I understand the Plan Commission or the GSD member on the Plan Commission is advisory only. So I'm supposing that's a Muni Code thing. I see that the people from Green Hills are here, and I absolutely hope that you will approve their conditional use permit and the plans this evening. They have done an admirable job of fulfilling all of the requirements in per the Planning Commission and have overcome a number of obstacles, and they do have a hard deadline. So hope it goes through tonight. The more I read about Sterling Pharma, which was mentioned earlier this evening, the more convinced I am that that the building and the processes in there are quite dangerous. And I'm just surprised that that issue has not come up with the whole issue of the TID. Now, I do know that it's possible that this project won't go through, but if it does, I would suggest that the village start looking at a HOA type of thing for stormwater in development agreements with large industrial businesses. I understand from going to some public works meeting that we end up having to pay for storms, ponds and things like that. Really, they should be contributing as well. Still have not received the TID calculations that I requested in a FOIA from the presentation in a couple of months ago. I just have 2 more points. I would like to see and understand if there are savings, as was suggested, that would be realized because we now have a full engineering staff. Maybe that's part of a public works meeting. And then for shorter village board meetings, one of the things that was not mentioned was that committees should do the work. This was discussed at the GGF earlier, and they were all good suggestions. I have heard in the past that committees just push things to the village board because they think everyone should be reviewing it, but the committees should do the work. I would also suggest that we need to follow the Muni Code besides Robert's rules, and that all the committee positions should be filled. Those are my comments.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Scott Heffley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. A couple things tonight might be a theme. First of all, I support the Green Hills. I've supported from the beginning. I support the Plan Commission. Wherever it's been mentioned, I support. I know the gentlemen. They're going to be good corporate citizens of Germantown. They're involved in the community already, so there's no reason to hold them back. There's conditionals that they have to live up to, and they're willing to do that. Let's make them a corporate partner. They are moving here from Menominee Falls, and we're here to attract business. At least that's what I'm told. Couple quick things on TID 9. I know you're discussing it, taking action tonight. I disagree with how excited the Plan Commission is about, this potential, and that's what it is potential. There's nothing in writing saying they're going to do it here. I don't care what anyone says, because that's never been presented that they're going to get it. Well, it'll help us get it. That doesn't mean that corporate is going to spend the money, because corporate's got to stick money in this. They just don't have their own money to do it with. How about a little historical perspective on Sterling Pharma? When they came to this village, bought out Cambridge Major, retired Michael Major, they joined the Chamber of Commerce, and they were a good partner with the Chamber of Commerce, to the point where the Chamber of Commerce, someone sponsored them, and they won Business of the Year in Germantown 2 years ago. I was at the meeting. Right now, they are not a chamber member, so they have decided not to. They win Business of the Year, and then they stop their membership. I don't know how good of a corporate partner that is, because it costs about $500 or $600 a year, and they're talking about spending millions and millions. So, I question that. You just joined to become Citizen of the Year, and then you quit the chamber. I don't know if that sends a good message. Also, it is one of several sites being considered. There's 4 sites being considered. One in Ireland, there's one here, other places. Nothing is guaranteed. Whether they give them a TID amendment or not, it's not guaranteed that it'll be selected to do here. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. Aren't we jumping the gun? We always give TIDs for things that are actually happening, whether it's our projects or projects in TID 8 or whatever. It's going to happen. We don't know this is going to happen. So what we're going to do is give them an amendment and say, I hope it happens. And yes, I heard that you can undo a TID amendment. This board is not wrapped to undo TID amendments or undo anything when they decide to do it. So what are we really doing here? We're jumping the gun. Has been mentioned by residents. Why can't we have more information? And I keep hearing, well, that's what the Sterling wants. Well, to be honest, I don't care what they want. It's about what you want. It's about what the committee wants. Maybe they're on a timeline, whatever, okay? How about the timeline for us is you tell us whether we're having the project or not, and then we'll decide if we're going to amend the TID or not. And the last thing I'll say is, because my time's almost up, let's be careful when precedents is set. I keep hearing that at Plan Commission. We don't want to give them a conditional use because there's precedents. There's precedents. The precedents here is anytime you want a TID amended, you can do that. People will be lining up to ask you to amend the TID. And you might get yourself in a trick bag there. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Hi, Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. Several items on the agenda tonight. The Division Road reconstruction. I recommend keeping the bike lane away from the road. That'll probably come up in the discussion based on options that are available. And also in the Public Works meeting, it was discussed about what the funding was going to be and the fact that that project would take place over 2 years. And it was mentioned that the village administrator wants all of the financing done at once. If the project is going to carry over several years, I would like to see us hold off on doing that additional borrowing before it's necessary. Tonight, there was the RFP for professional services discussed at GGF. I wanted to compliment them. It was a very well-run meeting tonight, and I think there was a lot of good discussion that came out of that. I do want to respond to Administrator Kreklo's red flags on legal services RFPs and saying the challenge about finding skilled people that can provide the legal services that the village needs, and that we likely are getting the best bargain in town currently, but I think we need to keep in mind the adage, you get what you pay for, and it comes out in the work product that you receive. And we need, for that role, stronger, more efficient representation. And I would say the same thing for our IT services. Finally, I have been doing open records requests, and I had requested a document related to the Village Center District that was referenced in one of the emails. And the response I received was that it was going to be redacted where I wouldn't receive it. And it was the cash flow analysis for a TID for the Village Center development, district development that they've been talking about in closed session. And it was denied due to the balancing test, which reads, the Wisconsin Public Records Balancing Test is a process that legal custodians use to weigh the public interest in disclosing a record against the public interest in keeping it non-public. The custodian must consider whether disclosing the record would harm the public interest more than it would benefit the public's right to access public records. The custodian can also consider public policy exceptions to Wisconsin open meetings laws, such as privacy issues, trade secrets, and laws that prohibit disclosing certain records. So public interest is presumed, and the question is, what is the harm to the public interest in releasing the record? I submit there isn't any harm, that withholding this cash flow analysis of the future TID for the Village Center isn't for public interest. The withholding is for the interest of the board and the development frenzy until it's too late for the public to have input and know the financial impact, especially when other development projects are being considered. I ask that you review the disclosure of this document as well as be forthright and read out to the public and the Plan Commission what your development plans are so that it can be a joint endeavor. And I think when you listen to the Planning Commission meetings and there is no consensus on what standard facility should look like, perhaps maybe put the brakes on development and get community consensus on what the community would like to see in terms of standard building structures, streetscape, all of that before you commence, because rebuilding the whole Mequon and Pilgrim Road intersection is very expensive. And then in terms of reviewing the budget, I ask that you restore the library's funds that were removed last year. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask other departments that didn't sustain a cut last year to look for 1% where they can cut. Otherwise, give the $28,000 of remaining ARPA funds that have not been allocated to the library, and also take the small $1,400 amount and return that CUP fund to Greg over the Grossnick property. We've got that money. $1,400 to do the right thing is not a big price.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? All right, if there's no one else, then we can go to the next item on the agenda, which is consent agenda. Board,
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through I.
Second.
motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda items A through I. And seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Jan Miller. Microphone on, please.
Yes.
There you go. Very good.
I would like to pull, excuse me, I would like to pull item E as in Edward, development agreement between the village and Truck Country, please.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to approve? No further discussion? Then we'll do roll call vote on consent agenda items A through I with E being pulled aside.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Bum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hudson,
Aye.
trustee Peeper, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
All right, motion passes. Consent agenda item E, which is development agreement between the village and Truck Country. Trustee Jan Miller.
Thank you very much. My biggest question on this agreement is I don't remember seeing it going through another committee. And so I'd like direction on what committee reviewed this. I could not, I might not have been here. Thank you.
This went through the Public Works and Highway Committee, sorry.
What date?
It was the last meeting. It was the September meeting.
The 6th, 4th? I thought I just looked and I didn't see it. Was it attached to anything else? I'm just asking.
To the item on the 4th,
Yeah.
the development agreement itself was attached.
It wasn't part of anything else. It was on its own.
It was, its own item.
And their Truck Country, what is their contribution to the road, if any?
Well, their biggest contribution to the road is contributing land that will be used for the road. So they're contributing essentially right of way for the road.
Okay.
Otherwise, like the write-up explains, the development is essentially a private development at this point.
Right.
There had been some changes with the timing on the Richfield utilities that shifted things. So now basically the development is a standalone private development.
Okay. And so when we put in the water and sewer, we have to put in the water and sewer in that road, in High Point Road?
As
then-
part of the agreement, we are extending water and sewer to the main driveway that Truck Country will utilize for that property.
And their
The-
main driveway is going to be off High Point?
It's on High Point Pass, approximately halfway between the railroad tracks and Holy Hill Road.
Will that storage unit use that road as well, their entrance?
Yeah,
or their
like the
roadway?
future use of the utilities and the road. For the utilities, we anticipate that Truck Country, Holy Hill Storage, and MLG, whatever that's developed into to the east, will use the utilities in the future. And then the road itself will be used by those same owners or developers, as well as Germantown for the trailhead project for the Goldendale Trail.
Does the High Point Road start up on Holy Hill? And then where does it end? Right on Golden, whatever the east-west road is?
To start, it will be Holy Hill Road south to the railroad tracks.
And the railroad tracks are is it before a road, another big
No,
oh,
no, it'll dead end at the railroad tracks until, we apply for a crossing, at which point it may extend further south, but that's getting several steps ahead.
does the dead end road go to the corner where they wanted to put the entrance to the wetland park area, MMSD park?
Yeah, it will go down to that parcel. That'll be like the trailhead for the Goldendale Trail.
Right.
Yep.
But does the road go any further?
No, that's right where the railroad tracks are.
That's right where it is. Okay. There wasn't a map, so I was a little confused. Okay. And they do want to start construction immediately, like September? Oh, thank you.
No, the High Point Pass project and the utilities are in design right now. So we're hoping that the design can be completed at some point in the next couple of months. We'll bid it out over the late fall or early winter and anticipate the construction would start potentially over the winter, but really in earnest in the spring.
So Truck Country won't be able to get in there until spring, probably, correct?
No, Truck Country has access via north driveway, right by Holy Hill Road.
Okay,
Yeah, Brian's kind of highlighting it right there.
okay.
So that will be continuously available to them during construction. And then after construction, their main entrance will be just south of the Holy Hill storage right there.
Okay, and show me the railroad tracks, Brian. Okay, that's what I thought. Great. That's everything I wanted to know.
Second.
Oh, I should make a motion.
Oh, I make a motion to approve consent agenda item E.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the development agreement between the village and Truck Country. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Don't you have to do roll call?
Aye. There's money?
There's money.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jane Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hetson, trustee Pieper, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Motion passes. That then takes us to new business, starting with new business. Item A, Michael Anderson, agent for Green Hills Industry LLC and Closet Investments, and Mark Mason, property owners, certified survey map and conditional use permit for property located at North 114, West 18686 Clinton Drive in the Germantown Industrial Park. To give us more information and background on this new business item, we'll turn the meeting over to our associate planner, Mr. Yankee.
All right, thank you, President Walter. Good evening, Village Board. So as you mentioned, this case is for Michael Anderson on behalf of Green Hills Industries. What is before you tonight is a certified survey map and multiple conditional use permits for the property on the screen. A little bit further here, the actual case itself for certified survey map is a one-lot certified survey map combining two existing parcels. And the conditional use permits are for horticultural services and snow removal services, as well as salt or de-icing material storage. And the property's within the industrial park and also located in a groundwater protection overlay district. Here's the site location on screen. The white box is meant to show the two parcels that will be combined into one, which will be the 3-acre development site. The site is zoned M1. So here you can see the Green Hills new location, the conditional use permits that are requested. Again, it's a 3-acre site, combination of two existing parcels. It comes with a building expansion and parking lot and landscaping improvements, as well as a sign that was approved at Plan Commission last week. So the certified survey map on screen here, again, showing the parcel, the 3 acres that would be combined for one development lot. And then the CUPs, it was noted in the packet, but there's two within the M1 district and one technically within a groundwater protection overlay district, which is the salt and de-icing material storage element. And if you'll note in the packet, there were 2 code amendments previously this calendar year that allowed this to move forward to this point. A site plan here, a little bit hard to see, but it was included in the packet, and that was approved by Plan Commission last week, Monday. Some renderings, one from the front entrance on the top left, and then one looking from the other entrance off of Edison Drive on the bottom right. Staff comments, just to note, the industrial use is in line with the 2050 comp plan for the Germantown Industrial Park District. And these uses are allowed, as I mentioned, per the recent code amendments via conditional use permits. Couple memos in the packet noted for corrections and revisions that would be incorporated into the conditions of approval that are within the CUPs and also on the site plan. And then the village forester would accept final landscaping improvements prior to installation. So PC recommendation on this, it was to improve all 3 items that is before the board. And they do have different conditions, and they are incorporated in the CUP documents that were in the packet. But again, those 3 recommendations are on screen. One last time to the site plan, and the sign was approved last week by the Plan Commission, but that is not heard tonight by the village board. With that, I can take any questions. I know the applicant is here as well.
I make a motion to approve new business item A.
Second.
For all items as listed, as presented.
Hudson.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion to approve? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Ketz.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Jane Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson. Trustee Pieper. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Village President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Next item under new business is new business item B, resolution number blank dash 2024, which is a resolution approving an amendment to the project plan and boundaries of tax incremental district number 9. To give us more information background on this new business item, we have representation from Ehlers with Mr. Phil Cosson. Phil.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to be back with you. As you heard in the public comment, we have a proposed amendment to tax increment district number 9. And just a little background, we did last Monday have a meeting, the initial meeting of the Joint Review Board. It was an organizational meeting of their group. They heard about the amendment. They took no action. They take action after Plan Commission and Village Board. And then held a public hearing. Plan Commission held a public hearing the same last Monday as well. And it was approved moving it forward to the Village Board. So that's kind of where we are from a step process. If it's approved tonight, it does go back, if you recall, to the Joint Review Board for final action. And that'll be the final step in the process. So that's where we are procedurally. We have been working on this for some time, but just to kind of step back a little bit about tax increment district number 9, it was created back in 2022. The 38.15 acre industrial TID has a maximum life of 20 years. And it was amended back in 22 to add Stonecast, which added 61.92 acres at that time. TID 9 was created in conjunction with the development of the new public works facility, allowing the installation of public infrastructure that benefited both the tax increment district, the original sites, and the DPW building. This amendment is to accommodate Sterling Pharma's proposed development. The boundaries in the TID projects are being amended. So we are amending both projects and boundary. We'll go through the boundary that is going to be added for this process. This was really brought to the village and to us by EDWC, who on a regular basis contacts local industries throughout the county. And in doing so, learned Sterling Pharma would be considering Germantown for a series of expansions at their current site and sites around them. It does include additional jobs that are tied to it. Roughly 50 jobs is what they have identified. One thing to note, from the village's side, there's no upfront incentive. This would strictly be from the village side, just MRO, which is a municipal revenue obligation that runs between the village and Sterling Pharma, that when they build, generate new development and new taxes, that a portion of that tax would be provided back to them over time through a development agreement. They do again have a series of expansions that they are talking about through this process. So there is the potential for up to 5 expansions. They have provided an estimate of about $70 to $75 million over about a 5-year period as part of their expansions. One thing to note, as we went through the cash flows, if they do all the expansions and the MROs are assigned to this, along with a EDWC loan that would be provided, this district could close out up to 5 years earlier than what was projected when we created the district. So the return on investment here would be very significant and allow for a better cash flow in the tax increment district and an earlier closeout. More on the loan from EDWC. They have requested some money up front that would be provided by EDWC in a loan through the revolving loan program. And those funds would ultimately be paid back with increment that would be coming from the expansions that happen at Sterling Pharma. So there is some upfront money. It's not coming from the village. It would be coming from EDWC and their loan program. This is the original site. When we created the district, highlighted in red was the original boundaries of the district, again, 38 acres. You can see the Germantown DPW building located in between that and essentially the first expansion, which was Stonecast. That added roughly 62 acres at that time. These are the parcels that are assigned to each of those areas that are incorporated into the current tax increment district. This is the area that would be added to the tax increment district to allow for Sterling Pharma to expand again. One thing to note, we do have to have contiguous boundaries. So we do pick up some additional parcels that are adjacent to Sterling Pharma on the north side. And then the south side, staff recommendation to add some additional acreage for potential future industrial growth in the area as well. You can see again, the parcels that have been incorporated in this amendment. They are in the blue shaded color. Again, there's the parcels that will be either expanded on or potentially brought into Sterling Pharma's campus, and that parcel to the south of Donges Bay that I just referenced as well. We've provided cash flows in the project plan, and the cash flows, you can see here, there's some components that I want to just kind of touch on here. You are in a position right now that the tax increment district number 9 is started off in great shape. We've seen 2 industrial buildings that have been built in the original area of the tax increment district. We are, well over $20 million in valuation already in the tax increment district. In the areas after that are the 5 potential future expansions that were provided to us by EDWC through Sterling Pharma. And you can see that in our analysis, there's a footnote. What we wanted to indicate is that even though they have provided us with an estimate that they're going to generate about 75 million, we have scaled that back, as we tend to do, because a lot of this is industrial. We don't know how much of it's going to be personal property or exempt from equipment, exempt from tax. So for the first phase, we use 75% of their estimate. And then for subsequent phases, we use 50% of the estimate that they have provided. So what we're showing is about $42 million being built over that 5-6 year period versus the, again, $75 million that they estimated. We are also providing a project cost estimate. The project cost estimate, again, it takes into account the elements that have been tied to this amended area. So you can see the first item is the $1 million that would come from EDWC as part of this deal. And then the subsequent amounts are really centered around the MROs that would be, at least at this point, projected for the amount of MRO they would receive. So at least the initial discussions with Sterling Pharma between them and EDWC in the village is that they would receive 33% of the available increment from each one of their phases, with 67% of it coming back to the village. That's why the district would close out earlier. And the $1 million is part of that 33%. So they're not getting $1 million and then 33% of all the subsequent expansions. That's part of that 33%. And this, again, structure allows the district to close out potentially 4 to 5 years earlier. In the cash flow, and I know there's a lot of numbers on here, you can see that we have provided an estimate at this point. And there's, again, a lot on this screen. I'm just going to kind of walk through from left to right. We have the year. We have the increment, which is a projection. We have some existing increment we know of, incremental revenue. We have some interest earnings that come in. And then a total revenue column. That first area that is highlighted is existing debt, or not highlighted, is existing debt. That's debt that was taken out for the public infrastructure that served, again, the original TID area and the DPW building site. In the yellow is the $1 million that would come out, or come into this from EDWC. There's some MRO payments currently in the original TID area for the developer of the current TID area. And then the MROs that are assigned to each of the expansions are highlighted in the yellow. Again, the amount of the MRO will be dictated by the value they actually create. So if the value is greater, that MRO will increase. If the value is less, the MRO will decrease. And then we have a annual cumulative payout, and we again highlight in the green the expected closure of the district, assuming all the expansions take place. Again, that would close out earlier, roughly 5 years earlier than the original project plan. What you don't have here is we did do some sensitivity analysis on behalf of EDWC that looked at what if they just did phase one as part of, and they didn't do the subsequent phases of their development. And that does close the district out earlier, just not as early. It closes about 2 years earlier than the existing district. It does benefit the overall tax increment district and the closure of that district. Again, the timeline is laid out on this page. Again, on 7/1, I was here in front of the village board. You gave us authorization to proceed with TID number 9. Joint Review Board Plan Commission, again, last Monday. Tonight is village board action on the TID amendment. And then again, late September, I think actually we have it scheduled in early October, would be the final JRB meeting with the fall submittal to the DOR. So that's the remaining process if it's approved tonight. I'm just going to, you had a chance to hear from Christian Teschloff when he was here on 7/1 regarding their interaction with Sterling Pharma. My takeaway were really 2 items that maybe respond to some of the comments that were made earlier. One, they are looking at a variety of sites. This incentive would be necessary to them to consider Germantown for their expansions because at current state, the payroll at their Germantown facility is greater than their payroll at other facilities. So the compensation to their employees, this would allow them to get back in line. And they do have a deadline that they are targeting in this fall. So that's why I don't want to call it the immediacy of this, but brought forward by EDWC that they wanted to see this move forward sooner or later, that this would be one less hurdle for Sterling Pharma in their decision-making process.
Thank you, Phil. Board?
Make a motion to approve resolution adopting the amendment of TID number 9.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Baum.
Phil, just for clarification, if Sterling Pharmaceutical decides to select one of their other sites in another country, there is no cost to Germantown for any of this because they did not do any work, so we're not giving them any money.
Yeah, your only cost is probably us to do the TID amendment. But yeah, no cost, nothing that would be provided to Sterling Pharma because they didn't follow through. I don't know, your attorney could maybe respond to whether or not there's been any discussion on development agreement at this point, but to my knowledge, I haven't been part of that. Nothing at this point. So I think they're still in their decision-making process, but you're correct. No cost tied back to them.
And then Brian, we won't have a firm commitment from them until they make the decision as to which location they want to go with. If they choose Germantown, then we will get the commitment letter and we will work through the developers agreement. Is that correct?
Would be what I would anticipate, yes.
Thank you.
Probably a commitment letter and then the DA would follow. They may skip the commitment letter, may just go right to the negotiation of a DA, but that'll really depend on their timeline.
Further discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Chan Miller.
So talking about this developers agreement, which we don't have, how do we know if they decide that they need more? Would that be in the developers agreement?
More in terms of like, we just want more incentive or something like that?
Yes, like we need more incentive to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they could come back and ask for more. That type of request would require, assuming that it's a significant change from what we've talked about already, would require an amendment to the TID project plan itself. So for example, the project plan as it currently reads is a percentage of the increment that's generated basically as a project cost. Let's just say they wanted to, instead of doing that percentage, they wanted the percentage and they wanted, build us a new street, just for example. Not that I anticipate that's going to be here. That type of change clearly would require a project plan amendment. If we're talking a difference between, the listed percentage and you're going to go up 0.5% or a percentage, that I think probably would still need a TID project plan amendment to come back. And so the kind of format of that agreement is already in place by the adoption of the project plan. And certainly, as you heard from Christian, that's really okay with them. I mean, that's what they've kind of had negotiated in terms of making this site competitive enough that they would do it. So I think it's ultimately not going to be a question of changing their request, just whether or not they decide this is where they want to do it or not.
My other question is, there's a large swath of land in this TID amendment to get to Sterling Pharma. So what other industries are in this TID amendment as it sits right now?
Sure. So in the amendment itself, and let me see if I can pull up this here. That's not the one I'm looking for. That's the one. So you're talking about like this area in here?
Yeah. And
That's
even across the street on the corner.
Yep.
That corner building is not Sterling Pharma.
Still one. This one's not.
Yeah, so this, yep, so this one here on the corner is a warehouse storage building. I doubt that anything would happen there most likely, unless Cambridge was going to buy it and do some development on that site, would be the most likely there. This component is all part of GFL, the waste haulers. Right now it's kind of used as a transfer station, if I'm correct, where they basically bring in garbage and recyclables and then process it basically to ship it to different locations. That would be the area where you could potentially see some new development, especially as the landfill nears its capacity over the course of the TID. They may look to develop something there. That at this point would only shorten the length of the TID, any development that would take place, because we don't have anything built into the project plan for like an incentive that would take place there or something like that. It would only be new increment that would be generated that would help pay off the project cost faster overall. And so that would be a benefit. And again, if they came in and said, hey, we'd like some incentive to help us do that, that would be another project plan amendment that we'd have to do to look at doing that type of incentive to help them out.
And then is this the third amendment or the second amendment?
This will be the second amendment.
Okay, so if each one of those companies came back to us, that would be the end of TID number 9.
You have the ability to amend the boundaries 4 times. You can do project amendments without amending boundaries as often as you would like.
At will?
Well, you still have to go through the process that we're going through to do this amendment.
So my understanding is the square north of Donges Bay Road was part of TID number 4. Is that correct?
I don't believe,
Yeah,
was it? I don't know.
north of, yes.
Yeah, you're talking this area.
Pharma and
Yep.
the warehouse.
Yeah, that was part of the business park TID number 4.
Okay, and my understanding is TID number 4 closed in 2019. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Okay, and then there were incentives for developers in TID number 4, correct?
Some.
And would Sterling Pharma have been one of those companies?
No, not Sterling.
Cambridge, I think, had some incentive that
It's the same building, correct?
um,
And they changed ownership.
what the incentive was, I don't recall.
I think it was EDWC again, adding some dollars to it. But they didn't have any percentage of return on their increment. Most of those were to the front of the park or to the north of the park that received any incentives on increment. The back half of the park, there wasn't any changes there. With all the additional building and all the additional development happened on the north side towards Mequon Road.
Okay, well, that TID, it's entirely possible they could have gotten some sort of incentive. Is that correct?
Maybe, not that I remember, but possibly when it first started, in the way back when machine.
Yeah, in the way back when. I have a problem with giving an area, I don't know what you want to call it, a TID over. I mean, there was a TID that closed, and now you're giving them another chance. And I think that Germantown is here, and we want to develop and grow new companies. The problem I have with this opportunity is the EDWC is loaning them $1 million, but who pays back the loan?
Yeah, it's currently,
Farmer does.
it'll be paid back through Sterling Pharma's increased taxes that they will generate through their expansions.
Okay, even if they, let's say miraculously, use the $1 million to put against their employees the gap between their other operating companies that they're bidding for, it's not sustainable unless we give them $1 million every year, which is what it looks like in the projection. The 4 million, there's $4 million additional incentive. Is that not correct? It's for different projects.
The incentive.
It's possible I
when you
read
add
that
them
wrong.
up, well, as it stands right now, it's about 4 million. When you look at all the phases, the MRO.
All the different
all the
phases.
Phases, that's correct.
Correct.
And the $1 million from the county.
Correct. So the way I look at this is Sterling Pharma is so short as far as competing with their other business units within their own company that they need the $1 million, right, to get at par. So unless they have exemplary quality control, people on staff, blah, 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 they still have to sell it. We don't have a developer's agreement, and I don't want to put money out there, encapsulate other companies that might want more incentives when we've already, encapsulated 2 of those companies in a TID before. I think we should be really, this could be new business, yes, but is it sustainable for Sterling Pharma? That's my big question. And I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy feeling about the answers. So I can't support this.
Trustee Jan Miller, do you understand that as they're paying taxes today to the tax base, that is still continuing even in the new businesses that are within that boundary?
Absolutely. They
So
get
nothing
tax base.
changes in regards to the amounts that are being received from those businesses today. The only thing that changes is if their development happens and the $1 million are given to them by Economic Development of Washington County Revolving Loan Fund, then depending on how much additional infrastructure they put in is then based against their increment return. If they only put one amount in or one development enhancement in, then that's all they get. And it still shortens the TIF life by 2 years, but they don't get anything unless they put it in. It's not, they're getting it no matter what they put in. First of all, they have to agree that this is the site that they're going to put it in. And then from that, each additional monies that they get is based off of what they put in. So if there's only one time, that's all they get. If it's 4 times has been projected, well, then it's different. Then it's the 4 million. But at this time, it's an unknown, and the developer's agreement would capture that in regards to explaining it per year per development.
I understand they still pay taxes. President Walter.
Okay, good. Further
But-
discussion.
I don't think it's sustainable.
Trustee Rick Miller.
If you don't like TIDs, you should vote for this, because at a minimum, if they do anything, it's going to close 2 years early. At a maximum, it's going to close 5 years early. And what happens? Don't shake your head yet. What happens is you close this early, that value and the surrounding value in TID 9 goes on the tax rolls 5 years earlier. We collect taxes 5 years earlier than we do right now. If they do nothing, we extend it 5 years. If they do something, it's 2 to 5 years. That was my only reason for doing this. Doesn't matter to me if Sterling Pharma needs the money, wants the money, whatever. EDWC is loaning them the money. They aren't giving it to them, they're loaning it. And this gives us the incentive to close that TID 5 years early. That's all I need to know. It helps the village collect taxes faster.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Bum,
Aye.
trustee Jay Miller, trustee Hetzon, trustee Peeper,
No.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Wilcher.
Motion passes 5-4. Next item under new business is resolution, item C, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale not to exceed $2,790,000 in a general obligation promissory note series 2024B.
Move
Give us-
approval as presented, not to exceed $2,790,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Anybody? Any input from Mr. Carson? All right. No input? Any discussion on a motion to approve? Trustee Cutts.
I just have a question. I don't know if it's for Administrator Krecklow or who it's for, but can you please tell me again, what are options for financing for the village? I mean, in general.
Okay. In general, for the projects of this type, there are two projects. One is for a water main relay project in Glenwood Park. And the other is for the construction of sewer, water, and road for High Point Pass. And the only way to fund those projects is to issue debt. And for the water main relay, there's two different types of debt that we could issue. There are revenue bonds, and general obligation bonds. In either case, the water utility would pay the debt service on those bonds out of their revenues, revenue that's collected off of utility bills. For the High Point Pass, the options that we would really have available are to issue general obligation debt, and the debt service of that could either be paid for out of revenue that's collected from a tax increment district, or it could be placed on the debt service levy and go directly on property tax bills that are sent out each year.
Okay, and so in general, we don't have like a capital fund where we put money away for projects down the road?
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that this went through General Government and Finance tonight and was voted to recommend approval 2-1.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
I have a question about the High Point Pass. As Matt Mortwitt was explaining, I just want to make sure I understand this. The High Point Pass will start at Holy Hill Road and then go down to the railroad tracks. However, it will stop at the railroad tracks. Is that correct?
This segment, yes.
So right now, it's a road that doesn't go through. Can you get over the railroad tracks?
One of the things that has been discussed by the village board, and again, we're getting multiple steps ahead, but would be to request a crossing from the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads. If the crossing is granted, and there is currently a farm crossing at that location, if the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads approves a request to enhance that into a regular street crossing for the village, then yes, it could go across. But those are decisions the village board has to make yet, and there are processes that we'd have to go through in the future.
Well, I was reading an article, and according to the article, the railroad consortium is on sort of a moratorium to not add railroad crossings, but they're trying to subtract them. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
So you can get over the railroad tracks at this point, correct?
There is a farm crossing there, that has been approved by the railroads.
What does that mean? There's no signal?
Correct.
So you have to stop. Otherwise you'll get run over. It's active, right? Active railroad.
There's not a public road in that area at this point.
Oh.
It's a crossing that the property owner is able to.
Oh, okay. So it's like a dirt road, like a driveway. Mhm. And another question, why wouldn't these two items be separated? They're two completely different things.
When we issue bonds, we usually group things to create larger dollar amounts, and Mr. Costin could probably answer that better than I could, but
Okay.
you don't typically issue bonds for single projects.
Yeah, I'll add to that, they're both going to be issued as general obligation. They're both going to have the same amortization schedule, so it makes sense to issue one time, or you have one set of issuance expenses when you do this, so you're not, going to the market multiple times and paying the cost to do
Sure.
that. So it's more about efficiencies.
You're bundling.
Yep.
Okay, and did we commit to Truck Country that we were going to make this road so that they can get to their
Yes, that was in the
location?
development agreement that the board just approved tonight.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Further discussion on a motion to approve? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jane Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hetzen, trustee Pieper, trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cossin. Next item on the agenda is item D, selection of Division Road reconstruction alternative. Give us some more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Public Works Director, Mr. Mortwell. Never on you.
All right. I just wanted to provide a little background on the study that was done on Division Road, and talk about that before we get into the action that we're looking for this evening. It's a PDF, so like just kind of scroll up here, or maybe not. All the way through it. So.
That's quick.
That was
I
fast.
like this.
I know we're looking to get out of here tonight.
One way to shorten the meeting. First and last slide.
Oh, man. All right. We're getting there. Okay. So the study that was conducted kind of over the course of this summer involved four components, really. There were traffic counts, there were public information meetings, there was a survey that was conducted online and as part of the public information meetings. And then we discussed this item at the last Public Works meeting and got a recommendation from the Public Works and Highway Committee. So I'm just going to quickly go through each of these sections. In regards to traffic counts, essentially what the data showed, and the counts, just going back a little bit, the counts were done on 4 different intersections going down Division Road. They're intended to capture evening and morning traffic, so kind of the rush volume. What the counts really confirmed was that even with projected growth in the village over time, over the anticipated life of a new road, that we're not talking about widening the road. In fact, there were a few limited instances where the traffic counts hinted that we could potentially reduce widths by removing turn lanes. Now, we're not recommending that in the eventual approach to the road, but it just shows that widening the road really wasn't a consideration after the traffic counts. And then even over the course of the discussions with the public, it wasn't something that really came up. So before we go further, I wanted to talk about how this was presented to the public a little bit. There were kind of three approaches, and they're up here on the screen right now. So on the low end, we talked about a mill and overlay approach, which is just kind of quick and dirty, get in. This is the shortest life cycle. It's the cheapest cost, but there would be a new surface on the road. There's kind of a middle option, which is to pulverize and reconstruct the road and make some other improvements to crossings, to side paths, and that sort of thing. That's kind of an intermediate approach in terms of lifespan and cost. And then there's a full reconstruction option, which was the longest lifespan. It would take the longest to construct, and it would also cost the most by a substantial margin. And you can see the project estimates based on which option you would pick. So I'm going to try to switch over to the other document. Yeah, scroll down. Tell you when. Okay, right there for one. So this is a concept that was presented at the meeting that just depicts the mill and overlay approach. We're milling off 2 inches of asphalt and we're replacing it. We're not really making any changes to the road. It would look essentially like it does now. So then scroll down and we'll just get a quick look at what the hybrid concept looked like. So all this says is that, you know, there could be additional width to the road for bike lanes. There could be some additional curb and gutter and other potential improvements. And instead of mill and overlay, we're doing the pulverize and reconstruct, where we're using the material that's already on the road for some additional base. We know from just driving up and down the road that we do have some base issues there that will probably need to be addressed. And then the last picture is kind of what you would get out of the full reconstruct. This is kind of a typical urban cross section. You know, it would look a lot like Pilgrim Road. So now we're going to flip back to the other one and go through the rest of the presentation. Doesn't want to go. So we presented those at the first public information meeting. This was back on June 20th at Spassland Park. It was a pretty well-attended meeting. The packet says exactly how many people were there, but the idea was to get some feedback on which of these three approaches in general folks were interested in. At that meeting, there was a strong preference for the middle option, kind of the hybrid option, which would be the pulverize and reconstruct. It could be some pathway improvements, some pedestrian safety improvements, and that sort of thing. Other feedback that came up at that meeting in particular was difficulty crossing the road. Speed around the curve was one thing that came up very consistently. And then around that same curve towards the south end of Division Road, no pedestrian connection, so no path or sidewalk, starting at the north end of the curve going around to the sidewalk. Sure. It's fine with me.
What was the concern from the residents? Was it they think that corner is cut too tightly? Or is it people speeding around the corner?
Yeah, I mean, their concern was that people are going in excess and quite a bit in excess of the posted speed limit.
Around the corner.
Around the corner, yep.
So with the reconstruction of Division Road, could that corner be kind of not made, because it is pretty much, it's almost like a 90-degree turn there.
I mean, there's probably things we can do within the width of the roadway
Sure.
to calm traffic. I don't know if we can greatly reconfigure it, just based on how much space is available there. But that is, one of the things that could be considered in any of the approaches really is how could the ultimate design of the road, have a positive impact on the speed in the road.
Okay.
So at that meeting, like I said, there was a strong preference for that hybrid approach. Doggone it. I thought it would be easier if I did this in a PDF, and I'll not make that mistake again. All right.
Get your reader.
So at the second meeting, the goal was, and this was another very well-attended meeting. It was here at Village Hall in this room. We presented variations of that hybrid approach, since that appeared to be what folks had focused on in the first meeting. So, things that we talked about were, the width of the side path. Is it fine the way it is? Does it need to be wider? Do we need additional side path potentially on both sides of the road? Do they want on-road bike accommodations? Do they want a wider shoulder? And that really got, I think, in my opinion, too far into the weeds, and the opinions got a lot more mixed. So that meeting, I don't think, was quite as effective as the first meeting, and is probably more information than we needed, but we did gather a lot of feedback from that meeting and found a few more areas that we could look at when it comes to designing some details of the road. But it didn't give us like great direction in terms of which way to go. And then the last component of the public information meeting was I pretty much covered that, was the survey. And the survey really just reiterated what we heard in the meetings. There wasn't a lot of new information. I'd say in the meetings, there was a fairly strong preference for bikes to be accommodated on the side path. In the survey, there was, it leaned just a little more heavily for bikes being accommodated on the roadway. That was the one kind of difference between the two. So that's where we're at. We had this before the Public Works Committee in September, and the Public Works recommendation was to proceed with that middle approach. So what we're hoping to accomplish tonight is your recommendation on an approach. One of those three, kind of the mill and overlay, the cheapest option, the hybrid option where we could be pulverizing and reconstructing, and then considering some other measures over the length of the road. Or, despite what we've heard here, do we want to consider the higher end option where we're fully reconstructing the road into an urban cross section? And that'll give us some direction to proceed with additional like preliminary and final design, and then eventually to bid and contracts. But I think we need kind of which direction to go, because it could affect how we approach the preliminary and final designs.
Trustee Pieper?
Can we go down the line and start with Trustee Warren and just get everybody's idea, just a one shot at a time, to see where we start with discussions here?
Can we get input from what came out of Public Works before we do that?
Sure.
Okay. Terry?
Public Works went for the middle ground on this based on the survey results, actually, from what all the people wanted. And price, of course, also factored in, because it's going to be an expensive project no matter what. But we do want the road to last for a significant amount of time. And yet we did, I think, all feel that the third option, the total reconfiguration to make it look like another Pilgrim Road, would be way overdone for that area and not needed.
Thank you. Trustee Pieper?
So it's plainly obvious that the middle option I mean, I can't see anybody on this board even considering option 1 or 3. So with that being said, if that's the route we want to go, what else do you need from the board?
A motion.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking for a motion to
So
be
we're
approved.
not deciding any other improvements for the road, for the paths or anything like that at this point, right?
No, and I think if you do choose the middle option, that's probably the option that has the most variables associated with it.
Perfect. I make a motion to approve the middle option.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion for the middle option, option 2?
Baum seconded.
Yeah, trustee Baum was the second. Trustee Warren?
Well, it's no surprise, middle of the road one, they usually do. But word of caution, I'm going into the weeds just a little bit here. So it's not as expensive as number 3 because it's not being reconstructed as extensively, but the base of that road is very bad. So what you save on a pulverize and reconstruct, you may spend on digging out bad material to support that road. So although this cost may look good now, we may be spending all of that money just to get the road base in the right shape to be able to support this road. Otherwise, you're throwing good money out the door. So that's the only caution that I mentioned. And the last thing in regards, just one more weed, if I can. I don't want bikes on this road. I want them on a multi-use trail. And if it's a multi-use trail, it's got to be at least 10 feet wide because you have bikes and people walking. So that widens that out. And you can do this with this hybrid, but I just don't want bikes on this road. So those are my weeds.
Okay. Further discussion? Trustee Jan Miller?
I agree with trustee Warren that the people, I think, showed up. They said, I think this is a really good plan. And the plan I think that won the most was with those separate trail paths on either side that can be, people are trying to walk and bike on there. We also have 2, maybe you could say almost 3 nursing homes that are toward Mequon Road where people are coming out and walking all the time. And I think that we just need to make it safe for all the pedestrians. And I think it'll get a lot more usage if we do that. So also one other thing about I'll forget more about roads than anybody, but we've done roads in this village and we've run into situations where the foundation, I don't know what you want to call it, has to be dug out more. And that's just something I don't think that you can plan for some, but I don't think you can, figure out, is it going to be 5%, 7% or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a risk that we all take.
And you'll see actually later tonight when Matthew does his budget presentation that even though, Kapoor's estimate for the middle of the road, the hybrid approach was 2.5 million. I said there's a number of other variables that we can consider with the hybrid approach that probably aren't going to decrease that price tag. So the actual request that we're going to be making for the road is 3.5 million. That can be used to address the base concerns. We're anticipating there's going to be some undercutting that needs to take place and some fill. And then our ultimate solution in terms of what to do with the side paths, how many, pedestrian crossings to improve, all that sort of stuff is kind of like, a menu of options available to us.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Matt, when you say 2.5, increasing it to 3.5, that's for the entire road from north to south. So that's not divided in half, correct?
The actual work will likely be divided in half, but we'll be
Correct.
requesting the full amount.
Why?
I think from just a capital budgeting perspective, the preference is to ask for all the money you need for the project right away and to have it available so you're able to carry the project through. And that's the approach that we're taking with this road.
But we can only do a half at a time, right?
Well, there's still variables in terms of the Old Farm lift station that we need to evaluate to fully understand how the phasing of this road construction works, and we're hoping to have those answers and a little more clarity in the coming months. So I can't say with certainty that it's going to be, you know, 1 or 2 phases or all at once, but we do know that we need to factor in the upgrades to the Old Farm lift station.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be making those upgrades and then going back into the road afterwards.
No. It sounds like it's a 2-phase.
In 2 years, no other roads would be done because that would be practically the whole budget for roads at 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Well, village administrator.
Couple of things. First of all, just I want to distinguish between budgeting for a project and financing a project. And I think when you're looking at a reconstruction of a road, even if you do it in 2 phases, generally you want to have a budget for the entire project cost. So staff is being transparent with the board about what the total project is going to cost, and we're being transparent with the residents about what the total project is going to cost. And instead of, breaking it into pieces and doing half, saying this half is going to cost this much and then coming back later on, doesn't necessarily mean that we would, issue debt for the entire amount. That it's possible if it's done over 2 separate years that we might include it in the bond issuance, part of it in the spring of 2025 and part of it in the spring of 2026. But as the Public Works Director just mentioned, I think at this point, we don't know if it's a 2-phase project or a 1-phase project. So it's another reason to include it to budget the entire thing. The second thing, and this is going to be I don't want to give away too much of Matthew's presentation here a little bit, but this is one of the things that we did talk about extensively. We're going through our budget discussions, as staff. But this is a large road project. It's all, it's going to be the village board's decision on this as we go forward with the budget process. But what's in the recommended budget is doing Division Road in addition to the regular $1.5 million paving program, which does mean that our capital budget is larger than what we've had. But that is one of the things that both from looking at our data and our PASER ratings, and hearing back from residents that, one of their primary issues is the quality of the road. So staff put that in the recommended budget. That is something that it's not our decision, fortunately for us. That is up to the 9 of you as you go forward with the budget process.
I have a question. So when you've been looking at it overall in discussion, I would imagine that the bridge that's over the Jefferson ditch is good as is, or is there any reconstruction within that bridge?
Yeah, we're not anticipating substantial work on the bridge.
How about the overpass at Revere Lane? That's pretty much just asphalt with a kind of a pipe. Is there any reinforcement
like
there?
a
Because
trough
there are load
culvert?
limits on that road.
Yeah, I mean, we're not that far into the design. Right now, it's just at a very high conceptual level. When we go down that road, that's one of the reasons that we're requesting a little more than what the Kapur estimate was, because there's going to be some unknowns that we encounter, and there's going to be some additions and subtractions to the scope that's been assumed so far. And that could certainly be one of them.
Right, and then there is some of that road that's been kind of redone through development that's happened in that area, kind of from Bittersweet Trail to Wendy Lane. Is that also just going to be milled down then and and repaved, or is sections of that road good enough to be left as is?
That's also something that we haven't factored into the estimate so far, but could certainly be an outcome. You know, it is relatively new pavement. The question would be, how does, you know, whatever we do on the rest of the road tie in and provide some consistency over that entire length?
Okay.
And if we can accomplish that with keeping the surface or just milling it, then that would be something we would consider.
Okay. Further discussion? No further discussion? Do we need to do roll call? We're not really spending money, we're approving a plan.
There'll be contracts and whatnot coming forward.
Roll call vote, please.
I would say no.
Yeah, go ahead.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Bum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hetzon,
Aye.
trustee Peeper. Aye. Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business item E, the 2024 market update reevaluation. As Steve gets his presentation ready. Good night, gentlemen.
Keeps the meeting short, too. This was suggestion number one.
Phew. Ask for a different seat in the restaurant. Ready?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
So I have a brief presentation on the 2024 market update revaluation for property assessments that we're in the process of completing. I'll start up by just saying that the last reassessment that the village had was in 2019, so 5 years ago, since we had looked at assessments. And as all of you are aware, property tax bills, individual property tax bills are based upon property values. And one of the reasons that we go through this periodically is to make sure that property taxes are distributed fairly and calculated accurately. So when we talk to residents about assessments don't determine the amount of the tax levy that the village or the school district or the county or MATC collect, but they do determine how that tax levy is distributed, and the intent is to make sure it's done fairly and in compliance with state law. State statute requires that assessed values are within 10% of market values within a certain amount of time. There is some flex in how much time we have to do that. Although we really were out of time at this point. Last year, our assessed values were 23% lower than market values, and we're dropping. The market update revaluation that's being completed right now will bring us into compliance with state law, and we'll anticipate that the tax bills that go out now are assessed values to be 100% of market value. Again, remembering an increase in assessed value does not necessarily mean an increase in your property tax bill. So one way to look at this is the average increase for this assessment, this revaluation was 41%. So if you're looking at your own property, generally, all other things being equal, properties that have an increase of more than 40% are going to see a larger proportion of the total property tax levy. Properties that receive an increase of less than 41% are going to receive a smaller share. Actually, I just want to go back to this point, and I'll also add to this that one way to look at at the distribution of property taxes is by type of property. The residential properties, the average residential property went up by just slightly under 41%. I think it was 40.8%. Commercial and industrial properties went up by about 45%. And agricultural and undeveloped properties went up by about 16%. So residential properties stayed about the same, but there really was a shift in the proportion of property taxes being paid from agricultural and undeveloped property to commercial and industrial property. What really affects property tax bills are the property tax levies that each one of the 4 taxing jurisdictions adopt as part of their budget process: Washington County, Germantown School District, MATC, and the village. We've also been careful when staff is talking to residents. You know, a lot of times, last time when we went through this a reassessment, the budget, the tax levies were staying pretty similar. There weren't a lot of changes. So we were able to tell residents that that even though your assessment might have gone up, you probably won't see a significant change in your property tax bill. However, this year, what people are going to see on their property tax bills are the results of the public safety referendum that was passed by Germantown voters last April. And that is going to, so residents are going to see an increase in their property tax bills that come out in December. But that's going to be primarily a result of the referendum that was passed. There is an appeal process, and I've got some updates on this. We have been getting some questions coming in and requests for open book meetings, either by phone or in person. We've had, I think the last count for phone call meetings was in the 60 to 75 range. And we do have in-person open book tomorrow in Village Hall. There are six staff members from our assessor are going to be here in the boardroom, and they have about 100 meetings that are set up with property owners who wanted more information. So, and generally what we find is that people, when most people who go through that process, when they hear how those values are calculated and the process that the assessor goes through, are generally understand, and well, don't want to use the word satisfied. You know, they accept what those reassessments are and move on. For those who still believe that their assessments are wrong, they do have the possibility of going to the board of review. And that was also indicated in the notice of assessment that went out. So people who are not satisfied after their open book meeting can go to the board of review to appeal their property taxes. And again, that information is all on the village website. So, again, trying to be very brief, but wanted to give an overview of that.
Questions? Trustee Ball?
Yeah, the one question I keep getting is, how is the DPW affecting my taxes?
That impact really took place than last year's budget or last year's property tax bill that went out. There was a small increase, as you saw, the jump up in debt service from the bonds that were issued for the DPW building. But that is kind of built into the base at this point.
If someone doesn't go to open book, can they still go to the board of review? Or do they have to go to open book to then get to the board of review?
No, you can certainly skip the open book and go directly to the board of review, although we do both my office and I know the assessor's office as well generally recommend to people that they try to reach out to the assessor because in a lot of cases, if there is an issue, it's something that's relatively easy to fix. You know, hey, you've got an extra bedroom in my house, for example, or, you know, something like that. And so if you're able to address those ahead of time, it makes it a lot smoother when we get to the board of review, where we're just dealing with issues that there's just no agreement on. So,
Trustee Jan Miller.
Mr. Kreckle, could you repeat, you said, most of the residential went up 41%. I think it was 16% on agricultural.
Agricultural and undeveloped land, forest land, it's kind of grouped into an other category.
Okay, and then what happened with industrial commercial? Is that one category?
Commercial industrial is another category, and that went up. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it went up. That was had the highest amount of increase. So what we're seeing is a shift in the amount of the levy being paid to commercial and industrial buildings.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Steve. That then takes us to new business item F, budget priorities, survey results. Steve, you have this one as well?
Yep. So as the board knows, we did develop a survey to try to attempt to get some additional information on resident priorities related to the upcoming budget process. The survey opened at the beginning of August and was kept open through Labor Day. The survey was posted on the village website and social media, Facebook, both the village Facebook page, Park and Rec, library, fire department, police department. We also emailed it to various email lists that we have. The library has an email list, Park and Rec department has a lengthy email list. And we do have an email list related to civic clerk and notifications for village meetings and so on. It was emailed to all of those items. We also did put hard copies out at the library, at the senior center. We put hard copies at the Park and Rec desk, the village clerk desk, the public works desk, all of those areas in an attempt to try to get information out. We did mail hard copies of residents of the survey to residents who requested that. Out of that, we received 734 responses, which I think was a good solid number. You know, I did get the question at GGF when we went through a draft of the survey, whether that was statistically significant. And my response to that, and I want to kind of make this clear as we go through the results, that this was not a random sample. So, and the concept of things being statistically significant relates to when you do a random sample of a population, of an overall population. Since the responses were not random, you can't have statistical significance. What this really shows is what are the opinions and the beliefs of the 734 individuals who responded to this survey. And the board, as you go into this, you could take that information for what it's worth. So first of all, who participated in the survey? Wanted to address that how long people have been here. The largest category was people who have lived here more than 15 years. We had almost 45% of the residents or respondents. A little over 35% of the respondents were 5 to 15 years. Less than 15% were less than 5 years. And we did have a little over 5% of people that don't live in Germantown. And I think that's a function of the email list that we sent to. Our library users and our Park and Rec users are not solely Germantown residents. We have a lot of people who use our library who don't live in the community. And we have a lot of people who participate in Park and Rec programs who don't live in the community. So I think that's probably where the bulk of those responses came from. We started out by just trying to get a sense of which services individuals utilize. The most common, not surprisingly, are the streets and roads. About over 90% of the users use village streets and roads. Also, garbage and recycling and village parks were also very common. And I guess also probably not surprisingly, the smallest number of services used were the fire paramedic services and and police services. We also asked the respondents to rank village services in order of importance. And again, I doubt that many of these responses are going to be very surprising to the board. Fire and police were far and away considered to be the most important services. Following those two, we had streets and roads, then village parks, library, rec program, garbage and recycling, and last were the rec trails and bike paths. I accumulated, and if you want to spend more time going through some of the detailed results, and I would encourage you to do that. Those are enclosed in the packet. But we did ask about the quality of services for each one of those categories. And, generally the results were very positive. Police and fire were especially positive. But we got good results in, parks, recreation, library, even solid waste and recycling, which to be honest, surprised me a little bit given all of the issues that we had last winter with that program. However, the one that really stands out, if you look at this particular chart, are roads. And that was the area where we had a high level of dissatisfaction with the quality of village roads. And you can see, if you look on that middle section, the large gray bar sticking up shows that about 45% of village residents saw our roads as about average. And about 25% listed our roads as needing improvement. And then about 5% to 7% evaluated our roads as being poor. And that really did stand out from the rest of the services that we included in the survey. We asked a series of questions asking if for each service, if more money should be spent, if less money should be spent, or if spending levels were just about right. And, generally, you can see the orange bars for each one of the services so we should keep it about the same. Again, the one kind of outlier here were the roads, where we had over 40% of residents saying that we should increase spending on roads. The next chart here, towards the end of the survey, we included a question asking about which of the following best describes your opinion of village property taxes. And again, the most popular answer among the responses were that they were a little too high. And, they want the village to look at trying to do things more efficiently. The next most popular answer among the respondents was that taxes are just about right. That was 30% of respondents. About 20% of the respondents said that taxes in Germantown are a great value, and they wouldn't mind spending a little bit more to improve the quality of services. And about 5% of village residents said that taxes here are way too high and they should be cut, even if it means cutting services.
5% of 730.
I should say 5% of the respondents, not 5% of the residents. And
Less than 4% of our population.
Correct.
21,000.
Overall.
And with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Are there any questions? No questions? Then we can go on to the next item, which is the 2025 budget. We have the budget director here, Matthew Uselding, to present for us. Matthew.
Thank you very much. In your packet, you'll see a copy of this presentation as well as some additional budget items that support this presentation. So I want to start with how we got here. So back in July, the the budget office and the finance department compiled salary and benefit estimates for departments projecting forward what we will be spending on staff in 2025. At that same time, Excel sheets were sent out to departments to fill out their current recommended or their current requested budget. In August, those documents were compiled by the finance department and with the village administrator to see what the gap is between the projected revenues and the projected expenses. In August and early September, we then worked to create a balanced budget, meeting with each department to go over a priority of items that they needed or they believe they needed for the 2025 budget. In September, then, we presented the recommended budget, which is what we're doing tonight. And over the next 2 months, we'll have several meetings to go over each department's budget with the eventual adoption in mid-November, and then the tax levy going out early December with the tax bills. Like many budgets, there's typically a challenge between limited revenues and an ever-growing need for services. And the Village of Germantown is no different. One of the nice things about the 2025 budget is we are seeing a projected increase in state aid from the state of Wisconsin. However, this is mostly offset by decreases in other revenues throughout the village, specifically building permits and things such as that, as we see a decrease in development throughout the village.
Questions as we go? President Walton?
I don't mind.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. What is the projected increase in state aid? I mean, are we talking a $500,000? What are we talking about?
No, certainly not $500,000. So for state shared revenue, they built in an increase with state sales tax, and that was only about 2% on the new portion, which was about $11,000 to $15,000 in state shared revenue there. One of the nice things, this will just be a one-time bonus, is that the state got rid of the personal property tax and instead will be giving that to us in aid. So we'll see about $200,000 in the personal property aid in the 2025 budget. This is mostly a one-time. I don't expect it to increase every year. It'll still be a one-time bump to that. And then we're projecting about a $50,000 increase in state transportation aids.
Okay, so we get 200,000.
Roughly 250. But the ones we can expect to increase over time are the state shared revenue, which was about 11,000, and state transportation aid, which we're projecting at 15,000, and we'll get those numbers in early October.
Okay. So the 200,000 will remain the same, but we'll get it consistently?
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Much like other municipalities throughout the state of Wisconsin, we're also dealing with inflationary factors that is really outside the village's control. This includes increases to village WRS contribution. That went up about 0.5% for all employees, as well as the village, as well as gas, oil, and other commodities such as that. And then again, staying competitive in the labor market, finding, training, and retaining competent staff. So the budget priorities of the 2025 budget really came to light back in April with the passage of the referendum. You'll see a large increase in the investment in public safety, mostly in the form of increased officers as well as firefighter paramedics. The 25 budget also has a large increase in investments in infrastructure. As was mentioned earlier, we recommend funding the road program at the normal rate as well as Division Road. And then reinvestment in the community of some departments that had harsher cuts last year than we all would have liked. So for public safety, we incorporated the 2024 referendum within the budget, which includes 10 additional firefighters and 4 additional police officers. This will allow increased staff or shift coverage for both departments, as well as we plan on recognizing a decrease in overtime within these departments. For infrastructure, we plan on increasing the funding for the 2025 road program. Historically, we had budgeted roughly $1.5 million each year for roads. We're trying to build an inflationary factor in there of 3%. So it's 1.5 and some change for 2025. We plan to increase it every year as the cost of those projects go up. In addition, on the capital side, there's some projects that address some stormwater deficiencies, which has been a hot topic at the state as of late, as well as smaller improvements in the non-borrowed fund for improvement to the library and well upgrades within the water utility. One of the things we tried to do with the 2025 budget is refund some of the areas that were cut as a result of the 2024 adopted budget. One of those areas was an increase in library and recreation part-time salaries. This will allow the library to restore their weekly hours back to 59, where they were asked to reduce them to 52 to manage their budget. In addition, this will allow for expanded recreation programs and additional staffing for Kids Club and some of those other popular programs. Village staff, as had been mentioned earlier, will see a large increase in salaries and benefits within the 2025 budget, largely driven by the referendum that was passed in April, as well as an increase in recreation and library part-time staff, increases. This budget also fully funds the 2 fire personnel that were included in the 2024 budget. If the board recalls, they funded $100,000 out of ARPA and $100,000 out of fund balance to get some additional staff early in 2024, rather than wait for a referendum in the 2025 budget. In addition, the only new position that we're recommending within the 25 recommended budget is an asset GIS manager within the DPW. This position will be split between the 3 funds and will really work to update and modify our GIS system, as well as allow for better tracking of the assets within that system. That includes water mains, sewer mains, trees, things of those nature. In addition, a 3% performance bonus for all non-union staff is assumed within the budget. So looking at the projected revenues, you'll see that there is an increase, a rather large increase in taxes and intergovernmental revenues than in years past. Most of that, or I should say a portion of that, is offset by decreases in all the other projected revenues. We're expecting decreases in license permits and fees, fines, forfeitures, public charges for service, and all those other things. You'll notice a large increase in, it's hard to see from here, but I believe it's other revenues. What that is that's the payments we receive from the school district for our school resource officers. So what had been done in the past is they had not been budgeted. We kind of just assumed an offset there. But what we did in the 25 budget is budgeted the revenue as well as budgeted the expense, and they should net to 0. So that's why you see a large increase there. That's not additional revenue. That's essentially just offsetting the payments or the expense for the school district. I believe it's other. Yes, they're funded 50% by the village and 50% by the school district. On the expense side, you'll see that the largest increase is in salaries and benefits. What we tried to do with the 25 recommended budget is keep as much of the supplies and operating expenses as flat as we could, just knowing that we will be seeing a large increase in salary and benefits. You'll see operating supplies and expenses only increase by 1.58%. We really challenged departments to live within the budget they had this year, knowing we're going to try and accommodate library and recreation to get them some funds back. It's a little small, but that is the operating supplies and expense by department. Overall, you'll see many departments were flat or had a decrease. The largest increases were probably in, and it's hard to see from here, but buildings, highway, and parks. Overall, their budget did go up, but if you try to average them out, it didn't go up as much as it originally appears. Most of that was due to additional funding to fund the tree program as the plan was recently adopted by the village board.
Office budget went down.
Yep. So there will not be a presidential election in 2025. So there's a significant decrease in election worker salaries as well as election related expenses.
Clerk's office for this year. Yes.
I can't, it's hard.
Yes,
That's what I said this year. Yeah.
63,230.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're talking clerk's office, you're talking hired election people, correct? That's the only thing in that line item?
For that line item, it is strictly election-related expenses, not election workers. My apologies. Strictly election-related expenses.
Oh, election related, okay. Treasurers. So what is the assessor's office? Didn't we hire this guy just for this year, or am I?
Nope. So we have within the assessor's office, so there's two components. We have an annual contract with the assessor, is a 5-year contract. And that is, I believe, $85,000 a year.
Right.
And we had a separate contract just for the interim market update, which was paid through ARPA funds and is not reflected in the operating supplies and expenses. So the majority of the assessor's expense is related to their annual contract.
So well, what else do they do besides what we just went through? Are they doing, are they?
Well, they maintain the assessment role. They do smaller assessments every year. So this year there was obviously a larger effort to update the assessment role. Each year they probably do a couple hundred assessments throughout the village, and they utilize community development, pulling permits to make sure that those assessments are up to date.
Property sales.
Yep,
Property
they work very closely with Washington County and the Treasurer's Office and the Register of Deeds, maintaining the assessment role.
Okay. But they're on our payroll.
They're in our operating
Contract.
supplies and expense budget. Correct. Yep.
Okay.
For contract.
Some municipalities have assessors on staff. Others, and it's more common now, they contract that out.
Thank you. Oh, boy.
So not to bear the lead here, but so the estimated property tax levy is projected to increase within the 2025 budget. The general fund is expected to increase by 16%, with the debt service budget increasing by about 8%, for an overall levy increase of 13.73% over the 24 adopted levy.
President Walter,
Yes, trustee Peeper.
what is the cause for the general fund to increase by 16%?
So 1.44 million of that is the referendum,
Police and fire.
and then the remaining is net new construction.
Gotcha. So the general fund increasing by 16%, that is because of the referendum. It is not because of the new assessments that have
Correct.
gone out.
Correct.
Are we accounting for the new assessments that have gone out?
The new assessments have no effect on the tax
The
levy.
budgeting right now. Shouldn't we be budgeting for the increase in taxes?
Nope. Assessed values do not affect the amount of which you're able to tax. They only affect how that tax is dispersed throughout the village or throughout the taxing jurisdiction. There's no effect. If your assessed value goes up, the village does not get more money as a result of that.
Okay.
Trustee Hudson.
If we remove the referendum that we passed as a village, what is the year-over-year tax increase, please? You're better at math than I
I
am.
should have came prepared with that. I should have known that would have been a question.
You should have, I
Should
agree.
have.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was looking for a percentage. Thank you, David.
I'm sorry, did someone say the percentage? I didn't.
No, we don't know what the percentage is.
I can, the math.
We think it's 300,000.
I think it's 3.5%.
East 31 divided by the old.
Percent.
And it's probably a little closer to 3%, just given that net new construction was 3%. The general fund levy would have went up 3%. The overall levy still would have increased more than that, just based on the debt service amount.
So about 3%.
Correct. On the general fund side, it would have went up 3%. The levy increase is largely and most significantly driven by the referendum, which again accounts for 1.44 and some change of the additional levy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then why, is the debt service going up so much?
The debt service, we kind of touched on this earlier, is largely driven by the 2024 A bond issuance as well as the DPW bond issuance. If you take a look at the payment schedule for the DPW bond issuance, the first 3 years, there's an increase every year in the debt service payment. And then for about 6 years, it drops by about 500,000, 600,000, and then it ramps back up towards the last decade of payments. So we're in the final year of an increase for the DPW building payment, and then we can expect over the next 3, 4, 5 years, a rather large decrease of about $500,000 in annual payments for that building. And that's just based off the debt repayment schedule.
Because you hit interest.
That's okay.
What I do want to note is that the current recommended levy includes the full value of net new construction, TID in. So if you take a look at the bottom there, TID out net new construction is about 111,000. TID net new construction is about 220,000. The current recommended budget includes both of those dollar amounts for a total of $330,000.
Last 2 budget years, it's been removed.
2024 adopted originally started out as not having the full amount, and then I believe the additional amounts was used to fund additional police and fire personnel in the 24 budget.
Yeah, I remember it was last minute.
So you included it this for 2025?
The current recommended budget has the full amount, yes.
So on this one, why is the 2025 levy going up by $84 on average per bill?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, next, there you go.
That is based on the net new construction and the debt service payment. So that's separate from the referendum. What I had typically done in the past is I provided a mill rate, not knowing what the overall assessed value is. I didn't want to give out a mill rate that was way too high and then have folks be concerned about that. So I try to estimate what each portion of the levy is from. So the 24 average bill was $19.50. The referendum amount will be roughly $167 increase, and then the 25 levy, meaning net new construction and additional debt service levy, is about $84 for a total increase of $251 over the 2024 average bill.
And this is just the Germantown.
This is just Germantown.
This doesn't
Yep.
include MATC.
It doesn't include
Germantown
MATC, the school district, Washington County. No,
Gotcha.
nope. This is just the village portion of the levy and of the tax bill.
Are you going to print out binders for those of us who want them?
Yep. So what I plan on doing is creating binders like I have in the past, probably in Excel, just because it's a little easier to work with sometimes. But I will also have the Munis document available too that was included in your budget in the packet. But I plan on providing binders like I have in the past.
Perfect. When you print out the binders, would you mind making the margins, the printing margins, very slim?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Big print.
Well, then it's going to be money. I'm just saying, print out the margins.
You're going to
then
have
it
2
makes it
binders.
look
I just use a magnifying glass, just kidding. So the average increase, does that include everything? In other words, we saw that just the referendum was going to increase like $300 some. Is that in
It's
here?
right there.
167.
Yeah. So the referendum. So as tax, if the tax bills goes up, the reason is 167 of that is related to the
Oh,
referendum
I
that was
see.
passed.
Okay, that was
Everything
the total.
additional, the additional $84 is due to net new construction and the debt service payments.
Okay.
So the portion that the village board really has the most to affect, obviously, is the 2025 levy. They could go back and decrease it more and affect the 24 overall numbers, but the margin really is within the 2025 levy.
Okay.
And
this is.
the budget's considered balanced with the
The budget
TID
is
included?
balanced with the TID net new construction, correct? And a little bit behind the thought process, I know in the past we have not included that. Just given with the decreases in revenues overall, and with the 2 firefighter positions funded with ARPA funds and fund balance, that overall cost is about $200,000 that we had to build into the 25 budget. And perhaps my rationale was if I take that net new construction, that pays for 2 additional firefighters.
Can you go
that
back to that
budgeted.
slide that shows that difference of with net new and without?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about 220,000.
Difference is about 110.
No, so the overall net new construction is $330,000. 110 of that is net new construction outside of the TIDS. 220 of that is net new construction within the TIDS.
Okay.
So if you wanted to take the TID net new construction out, you'd have to decrease the budget by 221,000.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
What is that per household, please, Matthew?
220. It's hard to say without the mill rate. I would estimate, so if it went up by 300 double. I don't know. I can get that number. I would guess between 30 bucks maybe, something along those lines.
Thank you.
You know, and if I can just add for the finance director in the background, it's, you know, that is a number that normally we would be coming with, but as you touched base on, we don't have the total assessed value, and it's kind of like, you know, the equation for making that calculation is, you know, the levy divided by the assessed value gives a rate, and then you take the rate times the individual property value, and that gives you their tax bill. Well, without having that one piece of the equation, yeah.
I'm missing half the equation essentially. I'm missing the assessed value.
Even the engineer back there is nodding his head, so my math.
Then it must be right. Any other questions?
So thank you for taking the time for this presentation. The one thing we'll ask for the village board tonight is to set the committee of the whole dates. I do have some recommended dates here that we have used in the past, but obviously those dates can be determined by the village board. The one hard date we do have, the hard date we really have is the publication has to be completed by Wednesday, October 23rd, because it needs to be sent to the paper on that day, because we need to have a notice 14 days, at least 14 days before the budget hearing and adoption. So we're targeting Wednesday, October 23rd, to get that public notice over to the paper.
Just
Those are each Wednesday within October, and then that Monday is essentially the last day before we need to go to publication, 2 days before publication.
Trustee.
We have to do the 23rd pretty much.
I have to have the budget hearing notice to the paper by the 23rd, so everything has to be done by the 23rd.
Trustee Hudson?
No. I think that is what we had typically done in the past, but it can be up to the village board to set. I was just throwing out some recommended days.
So we're doing 2 in 1 week, or no?
Nope, it should.
Every Wednesday.
Then a Monday.
Right.
Yep.
I'm gonna be out of town Monday. If I can appear virtually and that's okay with people in the village, I can do so. All with the dates that you provided.
Trustee Hudson, you had your hand up?
Didn't we do 3 meetings with an optional 4th meeting last year, if I'm remembering correctly?
That is, my apologies.
No, we
Councilor
have.
Walter.
You're correct.
And then, but the Monday, the 21st is a village board meeting. So
Did I mess that up?
so I'm not, whatever we're doing, I'm okay. This is different than what we did last year. And then I'd like to address Trustee Warren's comment. Can we start at 6 PM? I mean, this was relatively brutal last year.
Start at 5:30 if that works.
And the year before. So I would like to stick with what we did last year with the 3 meetings and the optional 4th. And I would like to start those meetings at 6 PM.
Yeah. I don't think.
If we can do the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, with the potential to do the 17th, that would meet Matthew's dates, if if that is acceptable to everybody.
No,
That,
not
that,
for me.
that,
I can't make 16th or 17th.
I'm going to miss all three of these. We normally start, I thought we all started in late September.
I just want to say good scheduling, Terry.
No, why can't we start next week? We have no village meetings next week. Thursday,
At all?
Tuesday, Monday.
Their fall golf league?
I can do any day next week. I would like to get public works done before I leave.
So we're not gonna find let's be honest, there's 9 of us. We're not gonna find 4 dates in a month that's gonna work for everybody.
I don't have a problem.
No, no, I'm not, no.
I don't have a problem starting on the 25th.
I can do the 25th. There's a library board meeting.
I will not be
Oh,
in
no.
Mid-City on the 25th,
Neither will I.
but don't let that stop
I'm
you.
out too.
25th.
Thursday.
I am out and gone.
What about Wednesday? What about Tuesday?
What about Tuesday, 24th?
Not all next week.
But again, guys,
Sorry,
we're not gonna find a date
all week?
that's
Yeah.
gonna work for everybody.
But are you back on, in,
President Walter, pick a date,
I just
And
say who's available.
please.
Why don't we send that out, yeah.
A doodle poll, we could.
Yeah,
a
do that.
doodle poll and-
Start with that.
I'm fine missing all the meetings. I mean,
Yes, that'll be fine.
Trade your butt back. We'll send out something.
We can
Okay.
get a, yeah, we can get a.
I can make Monday the 21st.
All right,
Possible dates.
go back to the dog picture, please.
This is when he was a baby. So
Oh, I was gonna say, did you get a new dog?
he's just a cute little boy. So
I mean the
I'm sure Sarah.
Oh.
does as well.
Last time you had the cat and everything.
I know I was trying to find some more good ones, but I haven't taken. I was trying to find some good ones of them, and they're all just not that great photos. And the house was messy in the background, so I wasn't getting photos.
Okay, any other questions about the budget? Anything else for the budget? Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I'll plan on sending out some more information over the coming days, and I'll print out hard copies for folks that would like them.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H, new business, discussion regarding current municipal code for solicitors, canvassers, and peddlers.
I make a motion to table this until next meeting.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed? Unopposed, motion carries. Last item on the agenda, appointment of Russ Ewert to the Plan Commission.
make a motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded by trustee Jan Miller. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion? We had to go through and change the code. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of all items on tonight's agenda. The next village board meeting will be on September 30th? No, on, I'm sorry, October 2nd, 7th.
7th and then the 21st.
All right, very good.
Then the next one.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching and have a good night.